Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GGP, the Global Grind Podcast, episode number 10. And I have a very unique, ultra hard-working, deep diver, basically the Energizer Bunny himself. I'm really not sure how he does all that he does. But again, this is kind of all about getting good people into making decisions for us here at the local level because they have our best interests in mind. So full-time farmer, very, let's say, a skilled tactician with a firearm in his hand and builder of guns, fire department, and our county commissioner, and a husband and a father, Mr. Aaron Walsh. Welcome on, brother.
Appreciate it.
Good to have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, how long have you lived in Wyoming? What are you into, and kind of how were you brought to today, where we'll kind of lead into you getting into politics, which I'm sure was on your bingo card.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've been in Goshen County now for 25, 26 years, somewhere in there. I mean, who's counting? I mean, honestly, at this point. So, I've lived here in this community for a while to where, you know, this is home. This is where I've been here long enough that
You got your roots here.
yeah, we've settled in pretty hard. You know, raising your family here, putting them through school here. This is a big part of my life is Goshen County. I love it here.
It's different. You got an identity when you live here, and not that you don't in other places, but Wyoming's different for a reason, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It's a very unique. It is a very unique county. It's a very unique place. I mean, there is a lot of. I mean that we just. It's not just a broad thing that we just say. It's a unique place. This truly is. Like when you look at Wyoming and how Wyoming's structured, Goshen County is like the anomaly, right? We're like the ag community. Where else in Wyoming do you see as much farming and agricultural aspect than we do here? I mean, this is it.
It's basically all of our economy, right? I mean, it really is.
Yep, it truly is. You know, we have on top of that, we have more roads than anyone else. We have more bridges. We are very unique in a lot of different ways that people don't realize.
Yeah,
right?
and even I didn't.
Yeah, it's amazing. We got over 1,100 miles of dirt road, and we're the seventh, eighth poorest county in the state, right? Out of 23. So, which is not to brag about, that's for sure. That's not something I want to put on a resume.
Might be how these farmers structure their taxes.
Exactly.
So we actually had this conversation the other day where I'm like, no. Everyone always likes to say that, but I'm like, don't take that at face value. If we gotta, instead of taking what income tax returns are, if we gotta look at what corporations and LLCs are worth, it might be a different story here. So at any rate.
But we that brings me to a point too. Is you know what it puts us in a weird spot. Did you know that we have hardship counties? And so the bad thing about where Goshen County lies, and on the government side of this conversation here, is we're getting started. We're actually right above the line. So we're not actually a hardship county. We're just at the threshold above a hardship county.
So what's that mean?
So hardship counties get special allotment of redistribution tax assistance.
And that would be kind of based on our income as a county, essentially,
Exactly.
or our poverty line.
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly.
interesting.
And so we're the same as the single mother with two kids that works a job.
Doesn't quite qualify for Medicaid, right?
Exactly. Yep. We're just there. So I don't like.
It's a bad line to be on the other side of by an inch, right?
It is. So you know, I don't want us to be any more impoverished than we already are. I mean, we don't want to be in that situation as a county, but at the same time, if they could just move the goalpost a little bit,
it would be beneficial.
It would be beneficial for us. We could actually probably succeed a little bit more in local government if we had that extra funding, especially with the funding sources that are getting removed from us. Like our property tax. We know with a 50% reduction of property tax in our near future, we have a 25% right now, currently. We're looking at it getting another 25%. We have to we have to match what the People's Initiative was. Now, to bring you up to speed on the People's Initiative, that was it was a petition that was sent forth to remove 50% of our property tax.
Which since we're on it,
Okay.
we'll touch it, right? Because this is one of the things that when we were talking about after the concealed carry course, we were just cleaning up, right? And kind of got on the subject, right?
Yep.
I think like a lot of people are going to sit there and think like, hey, property tax, right? So like I own an asset, I'm getting taxed on it, typical overreaching government, right? Which, okay, true, right? But it's like a lot of things. It's very easy, and like especially in my line of work in the financial business, it's easy to look at things through a straw, cherry pick information, and be like, oh, this is a crap product, right? And then name all the cons. But there are cons and pros to everything, and what I didn't realize, and one of the things that I think everyone could get on board with is, hey, from a federal level, right? Like we want to have as limited of a government with as much freedoms as we can as individuals, right? I think that's something that if you have any common sense or logic whatsoever, you're probably going to think that way, right?
Absolutely.
That being said, some of the disclaimer or the fine print isn't telling us, hey, if you take away these property taxes, not only is this one of the sources of funding that goes into our county directly and doesn't go through the state, but it's our sole and only source. And if we lose that, then we are basically outsourcing our control to the state government. And we kind of know it goes federal, state, county, and I sure would think that that would change my opinion on that a little bit. And I'm not saying maybe one way or the other, but if we lose, I was sure like Aaron Walsh, someone I can talk to, someone who lives in Goshen County making decisions for Goshen County, maybe not the state government in Cheyenne making decisions for Goshen
Absolutely.
County. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, and that's the thing is we want to keep and protect our local control as much as we can. And it's not because I want to have an excessive amount of control. Don't get me wrong. That's not what this is about. It's about we need to maintain our local control because at a local level, we're the closest to the people. We're here in Goshen County.
We have to keep our decision making for us as close to we can,
Exactly.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is ultimately, again, like, I mean, you live here, right?
Exactly.
You pay taxes here. You have, you're one of the people that's really just representing yourself among your constituents,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's one of the things about, if we talk about like a constitutional republic, right? So one of the things about a constitutional republic is that you're voting for somebody that's like-minded to you to make decisions on your behalf, right? That's because if we were actually a true democracy, we would go to the ballot box for every single little thing that came up. So if we needed a road graded on County Road 19,
hey, here's all the county, everyone come vote on the 19th day of August. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. So we need to have somebody that thinks alike and has the same views or similar views.
And that's where it's up to us to
educate yourself.
Educate yourself, yes.
Absolutely. And again, on who you're voting for.
That's right. Because you know what? This stuff does matter. And our freedoms aren't taken away overnight. Things don't change overnight.
Nope, they don't.
But slowly but surely, I think everyone can agree right now, our world, and I said that on the last video that I posted, the world's changing. There's no doubt about that, right?
Absolutely.
And whether you think that's for the good or the better, I mean, I think we kind of know, right? But there are some interesting forces that are pulling strings in maybe a direction that really doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're just a human being that wants to thrive on your own freedoms and see others do well too, right? Because I think a rising tide lifts all ships.
It sure does.
So I kind of think that it's our duty, right, to get informed with this a little bit.
It is, and so there's some things that are happening in Republican politics right now that's really controversial, and there's some movements out there that are against having property tax, and and it sounds great, it really does on face value, but when you start to put any context to this of what actually happens when you get rid of that, the devastation that it becomes, those are fundings for your fire departments, your cemetery districts, your conservation districts, all of these different things that we need in a community to withstand a lifestyle that we come to enjoy like having EMS and fire departments, right? Kind of,
They're
we
called public services for a
for a reason,
reason, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we take those things and how they're funded for granted. We don't think about, oh, hey, we don't like property tax. Let's get rid of it. Well, when you do that, what are we giving up?
Well, and I mean it's tough because especially like kind of putting into perspective as I've marinated on some of our conversations, it's like I'm not, I think you're not maybe people aren't anti-government, right? And I mean you're the same way as me, but I'm anti. Hey, I'm not going to work for you and pay in tax dollars that are paying for somebody's wedding, right?
Exactly.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Yeah.
Or paying for things that we don't have control. But I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is that where would we have the most control and say over what our tax dollars do other than right here in our county?
Yep.
Right. And so if there's anything that's more important, it's our vote right here.
Absolutely. It is. And if we lose that local control and our local funding, we've lost our county per se. I mean, if a certain group of folks get their way and we lose 100%, where are we then? You know,
And once you lose those freedoms and someone else has, and let's be honest, money, they say it makes the world go round because it does, right? And
yep.
government's a business, and once we don't have money, it doesn't matter what decisions we want to make. It's like trying to cook Thanksgiving with no turkey. Like you just can't
Exactly.
do it no matter how hard you try. And once
Yep.
we outsource that, and maybe the state level has leverage on us, in our county, it's going to be hard pressed to ever make those decisions for ourselves again.
Exactly. And we've already seen that it's very difficult, just moving forward with this initiative and why it happened, and we pushed back on it, and we pushed back because we didn't care for it. We had a lot of fire departments and stuff, and a lot of these people that were affected by this,
And it's
that
an
were
effect on our economy as well, right?
absolutely.
Because these guys are getting, a lot of them are getting paid.
Yep. And so there's been a lot of issues and a lot of pushback, and we've seen that when we visit with these folks in Cheyenne about this, they're really non-receptive. I mean, there's some of them that are, or they care, but they're not enough. There wasn't enough of them that understood that this was a movement that wasn't worth moving for. This was the the tactics and the way they were moving forth were very narrow-sighted, very short thought through decisions that look good on paper and they look good for votes.
Well, yeah, because it is for the uneducated voter,
Absolutely.
right? Because again, I said, I mean, it would make it's attractive, right? I mean, what's the oldest way to ever get votes is to say you're going to lower taxes,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
and again, maybe that's a good thing at the federal level, but like you said too, one of the big benefits of Wyoming is that there's no state income tax, right? And when these revenue streams start to go away at some point, like you said, we kind of got to make that up, right?
Absolutely. Yep. There's a lot of talk around Cheyenne about how, well, we've got money. The state has money. That's great.
And they do.
And we should have money. There's nothing wrong with having enough money to be solvent. We need to be in that situation. I am proud that we have that kind of money set aside, and we should maintain that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, okay, it's there, let's go ahead and reduce all the taxes, deplete all of our savings, and then what are we at?
At the mercy of possibly the federal government.
That would be a bad place to be.
And the same would be true, the trickle down effect. If we do that in our county, then we're at the mercy of our state government, right? And
Absolutely.
I mean, this is kind of how we get into that, it's not said that way, but it will be pushed, and then we get to that kind of C word, right? It ends with an communism.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right? Or to some degree, right? And, I think overall, like, we just want to be, just have freedoms, right?
Exactly.
And have to say, hey, here's what my tax dollars are doing, and hey, this is like you said, someone who I've vetted and educated, and yeah, he thinks like me, and to the best of his abilities, he's going to make decisions for us, and yeah, if not, that the further your control gets away from your own little community, the less say that you have, right?
Absolutely. That is definitely the issue, and a lot of people don't realize how much say they have in these situations, and I think that's a lot of not just being educated on who you're going to vote for, but being educated on the fact that you still can reach out to that person. You can still talk to them, and you need to. You need to know that elected officials work for the people. We're not. I mean, at no point when I became an elected official 4 years ago did I think that I was better than anyone, because at that point I actually put myself at the bottom of the list, not at the top, because now I'm everyone's servant. I work for everyone. So, and I remind myself that every single day, that um, I need to live my life in a way that I'm available and open to do the people's work. And the commissioner thing doesn't shut off. I know I'm a farmer and I'm a business owner and I'm a father and I'm a husband, but at the end of the day, I'm still always a commissioner, and I always have to present myself and keep my appearance and my demeanor as a commissioner.
To be able to receive that, no matter how much you got going on, how tired you are, because
Exactly.
you decided to fulfill a duty.
And that's the part of it. And that's one of the harder parts of this, is because you never think of it when you go home at night and you're tired, and you take your boots off and you want to go in the house for a minute. I don't think of my kids being like, well, the commissioner's home. It's not something.
Dad's home.
It's dad's home. But in reality of it, when my phone rings and they're like, hey, we got a problem with this. I have an issue with this.
You can't be dad winding down at 8 o'clock because he's busted.
I gotta play commissioner still. That's my role. That's my job. I signed on for it.
That's your sacrifice, right?
Absolutely.
Because it is, yeah. And I think that's one of the big things right now that we're seeing a trend in, which is really good. And like, to touch on this, does our vote really matter at the federal level? Hey, just my opinion. I'm like, again, don't take this verbatim, but maybe not, right? You know, because do those people answer to constituents? It doesn't look like it, right?
Yeah.
I think they answer to people that maybe control our money and different things. So
Absolutely.
sorry, YouTube, we're probably going to get blacklisted. But yeah, I mean, money makes the world go around. But I don't believe that that's true here at a local level.
No, it's not. And so, to understand local funding and how the money works, I've talked to several people here lately. I mean, it's a political nightmare during um, election seasons, and we come to all these people get excited about politics right now. I mean, we're getting ready to vote, for the primaries on the 18th, and so we get a lot of people that are pretty amped up about things. They're looking at budgets. They're out trying to figure things out. Well, the one thing is when it comes to local money and local funding and local budgets and stuff, you can't look at a budget without context. So context is a huge deal when you're sitting down and understanding how that money flows. So when we sit in budget meetings, because all the whole month of May, we sit down with each department and we deal with every department's budget.
Which might sound boring to a lot of you guys, but at the end of the day, Aaron is essentially doing the accounting for our county government as a business.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And if a business isn't ran well and the numbers don't match up and the finances aren't good, well, it doesn't perform well. And so that's why maybe we should be a little bit vested in kind of understanding this and what you're doing here.
Exactly. So as we're going through these numbers and we're trying to figure out how to keep these departments running, because these are all the things that we're dealing with, or most of them are all state statute required departments. So
Give us an example of context and what you mean by
okay,
that.
so the context of our budgets are how when we get paid on federal fires. Okay, so we have local fire departments that get paid. They go out on a federal fire. That fire,
Shout out to our boys out at Yoder.
absolutely, they do a great job, and that will get paid in through the county, and then it gets pushed back out to that fire department. We're just a pass through,
Gotcha.
but that shows in our budget. So let's say, for an example, don't quote me on this number just because it changes all the time. But we have to. So let's say we got $500,000 from federal fires that came in, and they went back out. Well, it shows $500,000 in our budget, but it's not in our county general budget.
So
That's not-
it shows that you guys spent it,
Absolutely.
even though you were just
brought
a
it in.
pass through.
We brought it in and we spent it. So,
Interesting.
So this is the context of these budgets, right?
Sure.
We have grants. So these grant money we have to budget for.
Mm-hmm.
We have grant matching money. I mean, so there's all this stuff that isn't tax money per se that's locally collected, but it's money in our budgets that have to be moved around in certain ways that people don't, without understanding the flow of how it works. You can't just look at a piece of paper with a bunch of numbers on it and say,
oh, this
I
is what
get
it
this.
is. Yeah. It'd be
It's
like
not
me
gonna
saying
make
like,
sense.
oh, I had a $100,000 business expense last year, but I actually got something gifted to me and then I spent $100,000. It's like, well, I'm not necessarily actually out $100,000. So
Exactly.
it's not realistic, right? That's
Absolutely.
not an actual, let's say, accurate reflection of the budget. So
Yep.
what problems can that arise to specifically, and how can that create issues or maybe take away from things that we need or don't need, or what problems can happen from that?
So then we have people that look at it and say, well, look, you have this many millions of dollars. It's like, yes, we do. Some of that, you're correct. It does say that in our budgets. Do we actually have that much? No, we don't. We have some of that's passed through, like I said. Some of it can only be spent for certain things.
Oh, so they're showing that you guys had the
We have the
capacity,
capacity to
to
do it.
pay,
Absolutely.
even though you didn't necessarily earn it.
Absolutely.
I see.
So
Yeah, basically, hey, you guys got a big pocketbook, and you're like, no, it's not as big as it looks.
exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Super interesting.
It's kind of falsely inflated
Yes.
in some aspects, right?
Yes. And just so you guys know, because the fire department, and I mean, this hits home here because almost all of those guys go to the gym here. I know them very closely.
Oh, yeah.
One's my brother-in-law, right?
Yep.
They're getting paid from the federal government. I had no idea that you guys were a pass-through there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So interesting.
So we receive all these different little things. Like I said, without context, you would look at a budget and be like, you can't tell me you can't afford to do this. You have all this. Well, now with that understood,
Now we know.
now you know that's why
We got to have someone that has that discernment and understanding to make sure there's an accurate reflection of our county's finances, or else we're in trouble. Because if either of us ran any of our businesses like that,
Absolutely.
that's not going to be good.
Exactly. If I brought in a bunch of money that you put forth that needs to go somewhere else, but it was never my money, and I was like, well, I'm just going to put it on my balance sheet.
Yeah,
I'm in trouble.
That's
because
right.
I'm going to overspend whatever that amount was.
because it's looking like, hey, here's what you could spend, but you're like, no, this was given to me and we passed it straight through to someone else. We never actually had it. We just acted like a middleman. But now you're saying that this is the size of my pocketbook,
Yep.
so to speak. Not accurate.
It's not accurate. So there's a lot of things that would trigger somebody to think, well, so if you have all this money, why do you need this other funding? We can remove it.
That's right. That's right.
So, but at the end of the day, we can't.
Well, it makes a problem that we already have even worse.
Exactly. Yes, and so now we're behind already, and then we reduce that more.
But Aaron, our roads are really crappy, so let's reduce property taxes.
Exactly. That makes all the sense, right?
We're going to complain about all these
So
things.
we have the 1,100 miles of dirt road, and we have to take care of
because
this.
we have such an ag-based county, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
And now we have to try to cover all those. And when people call and they're hey, my road's pretty rough, it's like, well, here this is what we have to offer.
Again, we kind of talked about, you can want to, make, magic here, but if you don't got pixie dust, you can't cook Thanksgiving dinner without turkey, right?
Absolutely.
We can't make things happen if we don't have money. And I mean, for those of you listening that aren't involved in agriculture, like I'm not, but I'm going to tell you right now, do you think there would be an effect on my business if agriculture wasn't around? I mean, you
Absolutely.
bet. This is whether people like this or not, and we should. I mean, it's honestly something that I know I'm very proud of because my family is in the farm ranch business, and a lot of people that are very close to me, yourself included.
Absolutely.
But people need to realize that this is absolutely the overwhelming, not 50, 60%. I mean, we are talking a very large percentage of our economy. And matter of fact, it's the backbone. If it was gone today, Goshen County would not be what it is,
Yep.
if anything, but a very small portion of what it is today. So this stuff matters.
It does. It does. There's ways to diversify in an area. it's the willingness to diversify in an area. And we want to maintain a well balanced ag based community. That's what Goshen County is. We don't want to change that. I don't want to change that. I think that's who we are, and that's what we're known as, right? We could invite industry in. The problem with bringing industry in is what kind of industry we bring in, and how we do it and how we structure it. That brings us to our land use agreement that needs to be updated.
This is a great one here, because this is kind of you've ran, right, and you kind of probably touched on a lot of what your first year was like, right?
Yep.
And getting in and understanding, having discernment and contacts that, hey, this budget, right, and our kind of accounting sheet for our county, you can't just take at face value. You have to understand how this stuff is working to make sure that the right decisions are being made and that it's
Absolutely.
accurate, right?
Yep.
But now, fast forward to today, right, in the present, we have something that, for a lot of you that don't know, if you build there, you have zoning codes, right? There's certain things you can build within the city. There's certain things you can build within the county. And I think, again, one of the things, just kind of layering this off to just some core values that we can kind of branch everything else off of to keep simple, right? Mm-hmm. Because no one's going to have the time. I'm not going to know. I'm around. I see you every week. I'm not going to know your stance on every single issue, right? But
Absolutely.
I have to get, what are your core values? What are the things that you believe in? And then kind of knowing, hey, your decisions are going to be made off of that base, right? Mm-hmm. So one of those bases is like, hey, if I own property somewhere, I don't really want the government to be able to dictate what I can and can't build on it.
Absolutely.
Right. And so this right now, and you said this is kind of like your the legacy you would like to leave here right now, is to make sure that this this Bible is written properly, or it's more of a constitution, but for this specific thing, so that we maintain our freedoms to be able to build what we want on our own private property.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So our land use agreement, the last one has been done, was in 1977. So we are so far out of date.
Things have maybe changed since then.
A lot of things have changed since then, and they should have. So
naturally, right?
We need to update it. It needs to be updated. The thing is we have to have extreme discernment when we change or alter how we're going to use our land use agreement, what it's going to look like going forward. One of the things is understanding what the old land use agreement looked like, and actually going through and reading it and understanding what it is and how it was built, and getting the understanding of that will help us make the new one better. And I really want to be a part of that aspect, because I think and I feel that I have the county's best interest in mind for protecting our freedoms of the right to be able to do what we want to do. That's one of the greatest things and one of the greatest qualities that we have in Goshen County. Do you know that there's only a handful of places in the whole United States that does not have zoning? We are one of them. Another part of why Goshen County is so unique. That's a big deal. It's a phenomenal little flex for our little county.
And everyone, I've been lucky to have went to a couple different high schools, and one of the things that I saw there was that everyone that lives in a small town complains about their small town, and then the people at WNCC complain about, oh, how Scotts Bluff is, and they go to Powell and it's so great, and the ones from Powell went here, or EW. Yep. Everyone just complains about where they're at, which is just kind of the 80-20 rule of people kind of being negative, I think. But yep. When we really look at it, Goshen County, like you said, has some really unique features. And when I saw people come, I'm like, I sure enjoy some of the benefits of this place and whatever, whether it was Scotts Bluff or Torrington and whatnot. And then I just saw that everyone complained about where they're at. And I'm like, wow, that's just kind of a pessimistic way to live, right?
It is.
So, yeah, and matter of fact, like we said, if you kind of skip a rock on the lake, you barely scratch the surface. But getting into the depths of some of these things, especially, as we're all adults now, it's like, wow, these are some of the things that absolutely make up the framework of what makes it a cool place to live here.
It is.
Yeah, and very beneficial for raising a family, and like you said, having freedoms that other places just don't have.
Exactly. And so that's one of the things that we need to preserve, and we need to have the understanding that those are freedoms we aren't willing to give up, right? I want to have that personal property right. I want to be able to, if I want to put up a, could you imagine? This is my biggest fear. And this is just kind of funny because I think about this is living in a place where if I was going to put up a grain bin and I had to call the county to make sure that I could put up a grain bin to store my corn in and have permission and have a permit and have all these things done and make sure that that's going to be okay, I couldn't fathom it.
And
Because we've been so used to having freedoms
yes,
of if I want to build a grain bin, I want it right here, it's going here, and it's mine, it's on my property.
and in the city, it makes sense, right? Like
Absolutely.
we have lines going through. We have like we're living as a part of that city network, and
Yep.
so they do have the control, and that's one of the things. But out there, you got your own well, you got your own. I mean,
Absolutely.
everything it's different in a county, right?
is.
And so why, like you said, why would you want to give that freedom up? It's great because they can tell you no,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah, and it's just like if you wanted to build a castle out there, you should be able to.
You
If
should
you
be
wanted to
able to.
build the Ronald McDonald
Absolutely.
House and like whatever you want to do.
I think, and here's the thing. If we're willing, if the government's willing to ask you for your property tax, you should be able to do what you want to do with your property, right? That's only fair. That's a pretty good trade.
I would say so.
So I don't want to lose those core values that we have of being able to have that the right to do with your property what you want to do. Do we need, like the town, municipalities have ordinances. Okay, we can't place ordinances in the county. We could put zoning in place. We could tell people what they can and can't do, similar to what a municipality can zone. But municipalities have to zone because there's such a tight, smaller structures of properties that you can't do. You couldn't put a castle on D Street.
So many people are in a tight knit place,
Absolutely.
right? And that hey, this is going to have some influence on your fellow neighbor.
Absolutely.
So we got to go ahead and make the call whether this is done or not. Because
Exactly.
yeah, which is not the case though when you have a farm ranch and you're trying to
Absolutely.
run an operation, right? Yeah,
If you lived in,
and you
let's
have
say-
obvious vested interest in this because guess what?
exactly,
That's how you make your living.
That's what we do. Yep. And so, if you lived in JM and you wanted to put up your castle, more power to you. You get that right to, right? You can do whatever you want, and that's what we need to protect. And that's what one of the things is. So, with our land use plan, that will put forth what this county looks like for agricultural, for industry, for urban developments. That's all going to be a part of it. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of money. That's why we haven't touched it since 1977. We just don't have the funding to do it. Just an estimated cost of a land use plan, we're looking at around anywhere from, to be conservative, 600 to 700,000.
Where's the cost of that coming from?
So this is going to be
What's the
through
expenses?
engineering, market analysis, through we're going to have geographical surveying.
All the stuff.
We're going to have a lot of stuff done to have this done properly. Right?
It makes building a commercial building like this and getting it to check out look like a cakewalk, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot more steps to go, and there should be. We got to make sure things are done right.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, I mean, people just aren't working for free, and you guys have to outsource some of that, and time and
Definitely.
money, right?
We don't have engineers that work directly for the county. We have contractors that
Sure.
that take care of that for us. But even with that, I mean everything you know just as well as I do in business, nothing's for free. We can't sit there
Nothing
and
in
get.
life, my man.
I can't call some guy up and be like, hey, I got a favor I get to ask you. Can you go out and do some surveying for me? We're trying to do this land use agreement.
We all got to put food on the table.
Exactly.
Yep.
He's going to be like, yeah, that'd be great if I had the time, but that's all right. I'm not going to pass on that because, yeah, he understands his time is valuable too.
Yeah, as people should, and if you value your own, you'll value others.
Yep. And so yeah, it's going to cost quite a little bit of money to have it done. And there's going to be a lot of other parts of this. And I foresee how this is going to have to run is we're going to have to establish a roadmap. And this roadmap is going to give you the here's the start and here's the finish of, we're going to have people coming in, we're going to have different sectors of the county and different delegates from different sectors of the county be the representatives. We're going to all have them come in and say, all right, in our side of the county, because this is all different. You think that people in the Grange are the same people that are in JM? Absolutely not. They have different wants. They have different needs. They're different land and different uses. So we're going to have those people come in and say, the people in my area want this. They like this, but they don't want this. But then they have the people up in Prairie Center say, well, we want this, but we don't like this. So we're going to have to alter this. This is going to be an ongoing thing. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take a lot of people and a lot of involvement. And not all of it's going to cost us a lot of money. Some of it's going to be from volunteers. If we ask some people, hey, could you be the spokesman for this area? Could you be the spokesman for this area?
And represent your
represent
people.
it.
But either way, it's a process, both
Absolutely. It's
from a
going to
time
take,
perspective and a financial perspective.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
going
it
to be a
just
big deal.
it requires a lot of thought, like you said, right?
Yep. And that's where the discernment comes from, is all this thought, and how we do it and how we structure it is going to be very important, because we could do it and we could be really hasty about it, right? We can just kind of go through the motions, make it happen. But we need to not only just get it done, we need to plan for the future.
Well, especially when you're writing something from a law and legality standpoint, you got to make sure that it has the longevity and the structure built into it to last for time and not have it be able to come in and just be altered, right? And again, like I like your analogy about having context, right? Like context here is like, this is probably a good thing if you're living in a city, right? So your neighbors aren't infringing upon you, and like there's some standards that are set in place to make sure that things stay a little more uniform and you don't infringe on each other or the city's setup. Whereas though that same thing, it's not black and white taking it out to the county. That's a completely different thing, right? Yeah. So we have to put this in context. And again, like you said too, LaGrange, Torrington, everything's different, right? I mean, shoot, there's been a lot of things that Torrington wants that don't get passed out by these smaller communities, and that's fine, right? But that it's all one big collective group, and we got to have some discernment and see what's right for the situation.
Absolutely. So as we're going through this, that's one of the things that I really want to focus on, is making sure that we do this in a manner that it cannot be unfolded in a previous administration easily, right? We want to make sure that it's pretty solid. We don't have to worry about further commissioners coming in and going, well, I want to make an amendment on this. I want to change this. I want to do this because I don't feel that this is suitable for that time.
And maybe times change. Like now, like you said, it doesn't mean that what was written before was wrong, but
exactly.
Times do change.
Times do change. But I want it to be able to withstand a little bit of time. We have to be able to make sure that this is going to be something that holds up when we look far enough into the future of what our county is going to look like, which is a very difficult, hard concept. How our forefathers ever did this is amazing, right? To be able to have that looking forward. And I mentioned this in our forum, in the Republican Party forum we had a few days ago. Is one of the things and I always remind myself, and I govern this way, that we have two different ways of viewing things. You have an old man what always refers to the past. He's always saying, this is how it used to look. This is how we used to do it. And a young man will always look to the future because he's got everything ahead of him. So with that, you need the mixture of both.
That's right.
And we have to have a good balance of, this is how it was, but this is how we need to have it.
Well said.
So that going forth and making this all happen is going to require that balance. And I think that we can make that balance work if we use the right people, if we use the right tactics, and we build our roadmap properly, and we have the right attitude moving forward. I don't want to glorify myself in this whatsoever. And there was never any intentions of ever doing this. This isn't going to be the Aaron Walsh county use plan.
Hey, my boys are going to farm someday, right? I mean, You're setting up a legacy. How do I make sure that these things I'm working for now are preserved so they still have freedom? And I think you brought up a great point talking about our forefathers, right? How do we, to have the foresight to get something that is our Bill of Rights is still so applicable today, and you can find something that is timeless and universal like that. And I'm sorry, is being able to build what you want on your own private property, in our area, especially in the county, rurally, a timeless thing? I would sure like to think so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of wrapping up, Commissioner Aaron Walsh, on the political side of things, it's like, hey, I'm involved in this community through my farming, through my businesses. My wife is doing a t-shirt embroidery business now. I'm into the firearm industry. You're networked with our law enforcement. And then obviously your political, you're meeting a lot of people now in the political realm. Is like, hey, I do have the discernment. I have been in the game long enough to see the context of these things, and flat out, I live in Goshen County and involved in the backbone of this economy, and preserving some of these timeless freedoms and making sure that we maintain this state and county control is what matters to you for our next generation.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about, we want to know about you personally. So kind of what's got you to this point. We want to know the things that you're interested in. I still remember coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. I had one of my buddies we had our graduation party with, and I had a large family. He had a large family. What was cool is we knew each other from the track team, so our families knew each other. So you got double dipped on people dropping their $20, $50 bills for you, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we made a lot of money, and I spent every dime of it with Aaron finishing up a custom rifle.
Exactly.
And I don't regret it.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much all the money to my name there. But I remember going out there. My dad's like, yeah, I got this guy here, come out and meet him. And man, like right off the bat, we get in and deep dive into stuff. And yeah, a guy of my own heart. And I know your old profile picture, just locked in, looking down the gun.
Yeah.
And like now we've evolved to this point. So it's been pretty cool. But what got you into guns? What got you into farming? And now what's cool is you have your own storefront, which is really cool to see. You're running out of your shop for so many years. So a lot of cool things have come to fruition.
It has.
Yeah, so that's pretty sweet.
So the farming thing, it was really interesting because it was one of those things. I honestly, this was a God thing. It really was. I mean, it truly. I started the farming business and started a business farming. Oh, this has been a long time ago. Man, I'm going to start dating myself. I'm starting to get old. But there was a guy that was going to retire, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? I want to get out." He's like, "Can you kind of pick up where I left off?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I'd love to. This is a dream. I've farmed, all my life for other people.
Interesting.
But to not ever, I didn't have anything handed to me. I wasn't inherited anything.
Which is a hard game to get into,
and
man.
So I was like, okay, I got some money saved up, and I went, and went to the bank and got a loan and got down payment on some stuff, and
the chips go in.
Yep, the chips all went in, every bit of it, and we made a run of it, and it's just been working ever since, And it was one of those things where failure was never an option. I didn't ever have that in my mind. I couldn't fail because I wasn't going to allow myself to fail. So I just didn't matter what happened. If it was a hailstorm, if it was bad weather, anything, I was like, nope, I'm not giving up. We're going to push, and we're going to push. And
you kind of got to come in with that mindset off the bat.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Yep. Or probably don't get into business, let alone farming.
Exactly. And so, and it just kind of snowballed, and it just kept working. And I'm just like, I'm not giving up. And just into this day, that's the same attitude I have every single day. It's just like, I cannot fail. I have to succeed. And so, starting new businesses, doing other things, going off and venturing off into other things. I've never had that thought in my mind that this could possibly fail, because that's not an option. Like you have to make it work. It doesn't matter how hard it is or what it is. You have to make that work.
Especially with farming initially, if you didn't make it work, well, I mean, you lost everything.
Everything.
And you're probably in a hole at that point that
you couldn't recover.
You would spend a lifetime as a debt slave.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's the scary thing as an entrepreneur. Yeah. So truly you don't have a option plan B of quitting, because if you do, I mean, you might as well already jump off the ledge with the brick around your ankle anyways.
Yep, that's exactly right. So even with like I mentioned earlier, I was scared to death being a politician. Absolutely.
A whole new venture, just like starting business again.
So crazy. But it was that same mindset. Like I'm scared, but I'm not going to fail. I don't care what happens. This is going to happen. I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to run this county, and I'm going to do a good job.
And is it something that, I mean, it's probably a rhetorical question, but looking back, do you regret doing it now?
No, not for a minute. Absolutely not.
Just to kind of extrapolate that, excuse me, I think so many people shy away from fear, right? And I'm not saying that, like, and especially, I mean, the way I've gone about business in particular, I'll throw all my chips in when I know things are in my favor, right? Gotcha. I'm not going to tell anyone to go risk it all on this and that. And that's not necessarily what you did either, but there's a time when the timing's right, you got a bid and you got a chance to go towards something. And guess what? Every single thing that you have in growth, whether it's starting a business, jumping into a new endeavor, getting into politics, right? Because you kind of got peer pressure to do it,
yep.
right? And I can see why. I mean, you have a personality that, Aaron, I think if there's anything, might save this for the end, but like, there's nobody that is going to be willing to put in a ton of energy and all his effort and leave it all on the line and have that mindset that you just described, that you live personally, with your fitness, with your businesses, everything that you do, but to put that into working for the people.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I really do commend you for that, because your work ethic isn't just, one-sided. It is, you do everything like that.
To the
You
extreme.
train like that. Yeah. And this could be somebody, because I do believe in the power of collective consciousness, and you and I are both very into fitness. We're both very into developing skills, that make us more confident, humble, grounded humans and men. And this is the mindset that there's just no pill for. You're going to feel, I mean, you're a grown man who's done plenty of things, right, in this life, and are seasoned and experienced, and it was still a scary step to take to get into politics.
Yep.
That's going to be our whole lives and the more, but it's so much easier for you because it's like, hey, I know what's on the other side of that. When you have that fear and that feeling, like, it's something that so many people shy away from. It's like, once you know no one wants to go through that.
No.
But it makes us a better version of ourselves in ways that we couldn't have imagined, right? Like, this is shaping you as a human. And I wish more people would realize, like, if you're just scared to go to the gym, if you're scared to whatever, right? It could be talk to the girl, it could be start the business, right? You got to start looking at fear as a guide and going towards it, right? And then when you have this mentality of like, hey, like, what's the worst that can happen, right? I'm still going to be breathing here today. So like, you got to put it in perspective, man.
Exactly. So, and there's another part of this, is on the politician side of it, is it's not that I don't regret it, but there's a lot of days that I don't like it.
It's a sacrifice.
If you truly enjoyed being in politics, there's something seriously wrong with you.
That's right.
I don't think anyone should ever enjoy this position. They should be able to maintain and handle it and move on. And that's the thing, is I don't want to be a career politician. I have no intentions of ever being in this spot for life. I want to serve what I feel I need to take care of, and once that's done, I'll bow my hat and I'll step away. I want somebody else to walk in that is like-minded like me. I feel like that's an important thing.
Continue carrying that torch.
Absolutely. Just like that. Like I said about being a constitutional republic, I want you look for somebody or you vote for somebody that's like-minded to you to take care of the business that you would want them to take care of, like you would, to carry that burden. And I want that same person to step up. And I think everyone, to some extent, should serve in public service, to understand it, to get a better understanding of how this works.
Yeah.
You don't truly understand
until you
how
get
it
in
works
that mix,
until
right?
When I very first started.
I can attest. I really can. Guilty.
Yeah.
So,
everybody is.
That's why we're talking right now,
Yep.
And because it matters, and like we've talked about a little bit here, this is where we have the control, right?
Yep.
Give us your worldview a little bit here. I know that's something important to a lot of guys in our peer group and definitely younger, without maybe saying the words that everyone knows that
yeah.
you got to say, right? So try not to get blacklisted here again.
Exactly.
But this is important, gosh darn it, like that's the grand view here is kind of good versus evil and just, because and it's real. I'm sorry. It's real, right? It's not fake. This is not something that's
very good way to put that.
Right. But bringing this all the way back to right here in GoCo, right? Like it is important to me to know what someone's outlook on the world is. So can you kind of tell us that?
There's been a lot of, and I speak out about this freely because I feel like there shouldn't be anything you should be ashamed of. If you have a political view or a political outlook, I don't think you should hide it.
Maybe the sign of the truth for the things that you get blacklisted for saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I'm not a fan of a lot of decisions that our current administration is making. I think that it's put us in a really tough spot in our economy and stuff. I am not, like I really think that our federal government needs a restructure, and that restructure doesn't mean like it's some hostile takeover. I really feel like I have a plan that I don't know if it'll ever go anywhere, but man, I tell you what, it would fix so much stuff for our federal government. You have our three branches of government. We have our legislative, our executive, and our judicial branches, right? So our legislative branch is made up of all these people and all these representatives from all over. And our judicial branch is of all these Supreme Court judges. But our executive branch is of one person. We leave all of our trust to one person. And when our forefounders decided that we should have one person as president, we had 19 or 13 colonies. It was relatively all on the East Coast, and it was a pretty small, limited amount of power.
Pretty crazy to think about that. I never thought about it that way.
And so, if we were to actually split that up and have a West, Central, and Eastern,
because we're 5 times that now,
absolutely
right, and every demographic is vastly different.
If you had 3 presidents, and it was a board of presidents, is our executive, would we have the problems that we're having now?
We in theory would have better representation of someone, again, bringing our leadership closer to us, right? Because that'd be like saying, oh, the governor of Wyoming and the governor of California are both on the western half of the country, so they're
exactly.
Right?
Completely different.
We could be in different planets, right?
Yep, yeah, absolutely.
That might not. At least we have 3 people that have to get bought off versus 1.
Exactly. So, and if we read it in that aspect of splitting it up amongst the country, what would it look like? I mean, so you could sit there and have one guy could be the chairman. You could have 2 other presidents that worked amongst in the White House, but they had to vote on stuff. They had to work stuff out. Maybe these executive orders they get pushed through would have a little more thought behind them. They would have to, right? You'd have to convince 2 other people that are just as equal powered that the way you're thinking is the correct way.
Well, what do businesses have? Big corporations.
A board of directors.
Yeah, you don't just have a CEO that makes all, and then our country doesn't have that, right?
That's
and
the thing.
Tying this all in a little bit here before we move on to the next thing is, at the end of the day with our federal government, I always kind of laugh, and I was like anyone else, left versus right, whatever, right? There's things that just from a theological standpoint just obviously don't make sense in the framework of society because they open the doors to, and there's no structure whatsoever, right? And I'm not going to get into the exact things, but it's like we got to have some discernment of reality here, right?
Absolutely.
But ultimately, government is, again, it's a business, and one thing that stayed the same is that there's been more money printed and that we have went into more and more debt, right? And at some point, you can't just keep going into debt, right? And we're feeling that now as citizens where, guess what? Things cost more, right? But the dollar's buying less, and those are 2 things that have happened since the inception of the Fed. So until I see our national debt go down or something like that happen, probably not a whole lot is going to change, but we're taking that right back to here at our local county as somebody who is looking at the finances and things that go in and out, because ultimately it does come down to the money, right? And it comes down to putting the right people in place that we think will make those good judgments and look into things at a deep level. And honestly, if there's anyone I want doing a deep dive, it's you.
Yeah.
Right. So, and again, that's just my opinion. Yeah, I mean, it ultimately comes down to that, and you have a duty to serve. And I'm seeing more and more people like you that typically, quote unquote, like both of us, would be too busy and we got a lot going on. But these are the guys that we need in office, and people are getting outspoken now and saying things that might not be, quote unquote, politically correct or might get you in trouble. But you know what? I think it's kind of a disservice to higher powers beyond this world to not speak out against right and wrong, good and evil. So,
Exactly.
and this stuff, it's not necessarily, some evil conspiracy, but at the end of the day, our future is going to be shaped, and so we got to make sure that we're having a balance and helping shape that, or other people are going to do it that probably don't have our best interests in mind.
Exactly.
What would you like to leave people with today?
Well, one of the things that I would want to bring up was the importance of the primary. In Wyoming, the primary is going to basically be the decision making of our leaders. On August 18th, will be our election day, and that's gonna solidify those positions. We're all Republicans running on a Republican ticket, and so whoever gets that is basically in the general will be the next person in office. We don't have a bunch of Democrats in Goshen County, so that's going to be the final say.
The
Basically,
primary is essentially
is it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's important. And people overlook the primaries. They're like, "Oh, I'll just vote in the general. I don't have to. Why would I bother in the primaries?"
But that decision was already made.
The primaries already made the decision.
Yeah.
So your vote in the general, when there's no opposing party, is already taken care of. So.
And that's something that we talked about a few days ago, and I was like, wow, I didn't know that. And I'm not ashamed to admit, I guess, but I didn't, I've never voted. Yeah. And I'm kind of probably the same reason you got into politics. Now all of a sudden I'm looking at that same thing, it's my duty to go ahead and give my say for all the reasons we've discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and the nice thing is you get to go vote for me.
That's right.
I appreciate you voting. So, there is some guys. You had Mr. Joe Spegner on here previously, and had a great interview with him. A wonderful person, has great family values. His political values are phenomenal too. What a good guy to step up and do the same exact thing. We're all kind of in that same mindset of we have to do something. If we don't, who's going to do it for us? That's what drives us to get in these positions. And you never know. Joe might end up. Hopefully, he gets elected and does some wonderful stuff in Cheyenne. Can represent us well. Can actually take and listen to the people's voice and do what's right for our area and his constituents. I think that'll be a great thing to have him serving there. Another person is J.D. Williams. The guy's been great. He's House District 2. He's been doing a good job. Very like-minded to some of the things I believe in. We probably don't agree on everything. We don't need to. Civilized people, we should have differences. We should have.
And that's what this republic is all about.
Absolutely, and we should be able to discuss those without getting upset and being mad and disliking someone for having a different view. I don't dislike anybody for having a different view. I want to understand why they have that view.
There you go.
And I want to know more about what they're for and what they're about. And that's the one thing was just nice. And really, one of the cool things about Justin Burkhart and I is we have a way of dealing with situations. If I come up with an idea and I say, well, we should do it like this, and he just looks at me and says, "Hey, dude, why? what are you thinking? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, no, you can't do it like that. It has to be like this. And I'm willing to listen to him and his criticisms. And I understand that sometimes that I'm not always right. I don't always have the right answers. And to have somebody to sit there and say, hey, you know what, you're not hitting the mark on this. You're not quite there. You need to fix this way of thinking, because this is how this needs to happen, and vice versa. I do the same thing to him. Sometimes he'll come up with something, and I say, dude, you're clear off. This isn't going to work. And it's the whole thing of understanding that we're not perfect in this. We don't understand exactly. We don't. It's not that we don't understand it. That we don't always have to be right all the time. Is we can be wrong, and sometimes we are. And if we shoot for something once in a while, and if we're not, we have to be humble ourselves, because sometimes we'll miss. Or maybe our wind call's wrong, maybe our dope's wrong, and we got to redirect fire. And so we'll redial it and send it and see what happens. And if that happens, and sometimes we hit, sometimes we don't, and that's just a part of being a person and being in politics. And we need to be humble in what we do, and understanding that sometimes we're not right, but the next guy along, if we're willing to listen, may have the right ideas and may help steer us in our way of thinking.
I think overall it really encapsulates a lot of what we talked about tonight, which is that it's sometimes not only about where the rock enters in and splashes, but there's a ripple effect on things, and you have to look at the effect on everything as a whole, instead of just, oh hey, here's the one thing. And if you have other people that are there, and like you said, you're open-minded to have people see things that maybe you weren't looking at, because it's hard to have everything in mind, and to have that foresight, because this is definitely a game of chess in politics, and not a game of checkers, and it affects all of us that live here. So, yep. And ultimately, I think that's what we could ask for, someone who wants to give themselves up for a duty and a service, because you're making sacrifices. You absolutely are. There's just somebody that is willing to work hard, is willing to be open-minded, is willing to, and you mentioned tonight, with your peers and your coworkers in politics, but also with your constituents, being open-minded and listening, and just being able to factor in all viewpoints to formulate maybe something that's the best for everybody.
Exactly.
Aaron Walsh, pleasure to have you on, brother. Thank you
so much.